together about growing markets and growing the sector and getting more people riding bikes. And I think we shared our stories and we've built an amazing partnership between ourselves and particularly a good friend Robert, who's been an amazing partner in this work. So much appreciated to be here once again. Cycling Industries Europe, if you're not familiar with us, very simply for the Taiwanese audience, we are the kind of TBA, the company representation at the European level, bringing together companies and organizations, not only from the supply chain side and retail, but also bike sharing, digital services, research. So we can actually build what we call an ecosystem, where the different parts of the industry, and we deliberately call it industries, will learn from each other. And that is companies from all over the world if they trade in Europe, and delighted to have Taiwanese companies in our membership, as many others in the organization. So what I'm here to do today is talk a little bit about what we're learning. Perhaps it's early to say what we're doing, because we're on the start of a remarkable journey, and as the description of my talk was an industrial revolution. So yes, I'm invited to talk about sustainability, but what I really want you to remember for us is that sustainability is one of the tools that is part of our change. And therefore, this is a wider story than sustainability about what will happen in Europe and to your customers and the users of your equipment and supplies as well for the Taiwanese audience. This is going to be a remarkable transition for us. And so that is my overall scope. And I want to go through it in 3 clear steps. Number 1 is that we never forget we already got the most sustainable mode of transport. We start from a really good place. And it's easy to get, we're not quite green enough, but actually we're in an amazing place. And I will talk briefly about that and its implications for the market. But of course, we will look at a sustainability challenge. But I want to take that on as the final part of my talk to the revolution that it can cause, the opportunity it can drive. So, bike is best. There's a lot of words on here. This is a typical political statement in our world. But this is not our words. This is the words of the European Commission, talking about cycling. And now I highlight in yellow, center of the green transition, most sustainable, greenhouse gas emissions, air noise pollution, we say, sustainable tourism, quality green jobs. We're an industry. They like us because we create quality green jobs. And not just in bicycle supply chain, in delivery bicycles, in tourism, in bike hire and bike sharing. So when bikes are used, we are creating quality green jobs. So this is our starting point. Why is this so strong? This is just one of many, many academic papers. This happened to be looking at Paris region and asking, what is the carbon footprint? And it's quite sophisticated. It gives a different carbon footprint for an aluminium bicycle and a steel bicycle. Detail work. But it doesn't matter which bicycle. It is the best, most carbon reducing form of transport. We get people out of cars and taxis and other modes, out of motorcycles to bikes. That's our starting point. And it's not just carbon, it's emissions. This is one city. 500 years of life saved, lives extended if we cut air pollution. Recommendation, use bikes to replace cars. I don't think any of us would be surprised if that's the story, but it's a great starting point. So, if we do our job well, all of us here, Taipei and other markets, and we turn up with the best clear data, we have belief. We have belief from investors, citizens, employers. We are competitive. There's competition within us, there's competition within this room. But against the change we need to make, we are competitive. But we have to do that well, because certainly from a European point of view, there's now a battle to have the cleanest data. And there's a backlash against greenwashing. One of my fears is that we don't turn up. So it's not we produce bad numbers, but we don't have agreed numbers. Maybe with our Taiwanese colleagues and our American brands and our European operations, let's pick Google Maps. If Google Maps says the best way from here to there, the greenest way is by bike, someone has to give them a number. And it probably has to be us, the industry. And it has to be a credible number. Because if it's not, they're no longer going to be able to publish that figure. Because under green transparency, it has to be provable. And there's already issues on court cases about greenwashing. They don't touch us yet. But, come on, bike will be best if we do our job well. And where does that take us? We have forecast that we should get to something like 28 million units in Europe by 2030. Tough to imagine at the moment with the supply chain drip, and we have an inventory problem, but the money is flowing from governments. The bike lanes are being built. The social funds to give premium discounts to buy e-bikes and bike share is coming, and has been coming. We are confident still. We are maybe not so confident, where is the 2023-24 dip? But the long term. But McKinsey did a different study. They said, Europe doesn't need you to go up by 50%. Europe needs you to double. Because if we are going to fix the carbon problem, electric cars can't do it. We don't have the space or the money to build public transport on that scale. It just doesn't exist. There's a hole. So you're not ambitious enough. Nobody ever told Kevin Main he wasn't ambitious enough. It never happens. And suddenly we've been told you're not ambitious enough. So there's a challenge. We can step up even more to fill this. It's our responsibility to step up even more and fill this space. But isn't that exciting? The greenest, most sustainable mode of transport with this really, really strong future. So that's good. Maybe I stop now. We can all smile and they say, thank you, Kevin, see you next year. But of course, we've talked about sustainability. If this is so good, why do we bother? Why do we talk about sustainability? I'll start from one place. Because it's good, it's in our values. It's our DNA. It's our customers' DNA. People have an expectation of us and our industry that we don't sit back and relax and sit in our deck chairs and go, it's okay, we're the greenest. No, they trust us as an industry. So actually it's starting to see, go back 5 years. Before the pandemic, there were companies in the bike industry starting to talk about sustainability because they understood this is going to be important to their customers. Now that goes further. It goes further because the more we expose the numbers and the more we expose our ambition comes transparency. And then people go, well, which is the greenest? Are you the greenest? So even, unkind maybe to this brand, who have a good reputation for sustainability, but they're the first ones a journalist goes to. And for us, these are two different carbon reports from the bike industry. Someone could look at the left or the right and say, which is the greenest? We have no idea. Let's be honest, because there's no common system yet behind this to say which could be the greenest, which should be the but it's going to come. There will come a point. There's an article written every day about which is the best mountain bike, which is the best e-bike, which is the best chain, Robert. We try to get the stories written, but it will come. And if you get it wrong, an industry can lose trust. This was, I think, a global news story. Some of the legal implications are still going through, but this was a trusted industry that was accused of cheating. Right now, we're a trusted industry, and as a spokesperson for the industry, I never want to be in a scenario where we're accused of cheating. So we will take this seriously as a sector. It's important to us, and it is our values. But the other thing it is, and it matters, it's competitive. It's competitive between companies. Yes, you want to compare your green credentials, but actually on a world level, the European Union has decided that carbon and emissions and footprints are actually competitive for Europe. Now, we didn't put that there. The European aluminium industry, the steel industry, the battery industry, the energy industry wants to make this a global competition. So when you trade in Europe, you take on European standards, and they hope it makes them more competitive. For us, that's quite tough, because we do rely on our global supply chains, and we are relying on our partners to provide us with the kind of answers to some of these standard questions about transparency and exposure. But we're under political pressure to be pro-Europe. We're under political pressure to be pro-reshoring, as you might expect, because we're based in Europe. But we are being under pressure because we will have to implement standards and regulations that are being pressured to influence competition. And let's be all adults. The same is happening in the US. The same is happening in other regions. Standards and sustainability are a competitive topic. And that means lots and lots of words. I just took some regulations here, but there are 10, 20 sheets of regulations coming on transparency, on greenwash, on declarations, on carbon footprints, and they come in different ways. And that is our new world. We are lucky we maybe not be in such a regulated industry, but there's no question we are sucked into this global competitive situation. I give you one example. We now have a European battery regulation. We have until 2031 for compliance with e-bikes. But right at the start, carbon footprint, third-party verified, publicly accessible, first milestone. Unique battery passport, a QR code that tells you repairability, history, source of the raw materials, carbon footprint. It's not negotiable. It's coming. Did we ask for it? No. Maybe we struggle. We have a repairability that we fought against as an industry. But because it's going to happen to the drill that you use in your house, it's going to happen to car battery. We are drawn into this world. And further on, compulsory recycled content. This is going to come. It's going to be followed for aluminium. It's going to follow for other materials. It's going to come for tires. Slowly we will be drawn into these kind of networks and these kind of regulations as part of being active in this space. Actually, and I'm glad Adam's going to speak, because he's know more than I will, but textiles is actually going to be before batteries. So if you're in a bicycle retailer in Europe, the first thing you will probably see is a passport on the clothing. then it will be the e-bikes, and then somewhere in the future it will be repairability, it might be bike frames. But this is now our world. So, many sustainability challenges, transparency, competition, but maintaining that thinking that bike is best, because we will do them well, because we are in a good position. But there is another reason to do them well, and that is because we are maturing and professionalizing as an industry. And I have a previous background in other industry. More and more we attract people from other sectors into the bike world because there is a passion and an enthusiasm for working in bike. There is a recognition we have some catching up to do. We don't have some of the same transparency. It's very easy. Every car has a registration number. It sits in a database somewhere. There's an industry that's been used to recording everything for generations. We've never had a European directory of bikes to start from. We're going to have to build that to do the battery passports. So we need a revolution. And what do we want? Well, never mind sustainability. We'd quite like a good sales forecast. Maybe we wouldn't have some of these inventory problems if we were better at sharing. And other industries share stocks. What a shock that would be for the bike industry to share stock positions and actually open up. We do have to take action on growth and batteries. We can save an enormous amount of money. We do it with market research. We buy 100,000 euros of market research, but the big companies just pay 10 because they share the costs. So that we can actually, that's a simple example, but that could be research into new product. It could be research into the battery passports. If we do it, everybody on their own, it'll cost a lot. We do it together, it's efficient. And there are going to be a lot of new businesses. For everything you make here in Taiwan that comes to Europe, we are not going to send it back to Taiwan for reprocessing. This I promise. We have to reprocess, we have to recycle, we have to repair in Europe, and those are new businesses. And that will create, when we say cycling industries, there's a whole new industry sector that will emerge. And you as suppliers will be part of that because you'll be knowing where your products go. And ultimately, we also need to not just be friends. Structurally, the associations lead working together, world associations, national, international, to actually create everything we see here. And it will go beyond just coming to each other's forums. It must go beyond. So, the example, I mentioned it, will be the passport. I have a colleague here, if you know, you'll meet Jack Lavelle, our industry manager, but Jack keeps saying to everybody, 1 QR code per bike, please. Now, once we start with the batteries, we start with the frames, then we build up so it actually connects. And that will have the history. You will use it in your factories. Your customers will use it to keep stock. Now we have barcodes, maybe in some factories, RFID. This is where we're going to end up. Now let's do the job once. Please? Please? Sorry, I'll stop now. Not enough people are nodding. Shall we do it once?
Yes.
Yes. Whew. For a moment I was really worried. Data. If you are collecting and you have got one system, how come the European outdoor industry can do a monthly report on shipments so they can manage stock and sales? How come you can get a weekly report on car sales for the whole of Europe by every brand? We're not so complicated that we can't do this, but we've struggled. But once we start down that route of a transparency system that we will do for sustainability, why not add data to the same system? And what did I say? We'll do it once, not create a different system for this. Safety and traceability. If we're going to put a label on a battery, we can put a label on a charger, and we can make sure the consumer knows that they can buy compatible. And if people want to sell stolen batteries, right now there's no check. But if there's a full history on the battery, it's much harder to fake if it's a complete system behind than if it's one tiny barcode. So there's an opportunity to start to deal with what I will call the grey market. I've been polite, but this is causing a regulatory problem, backlash for us on e-bikes. It's crazy. You can take your bicycle on a train in some countries, you can't take your e-bike anymore. They've already decided it's gone because they think it's unsafe, even from a reputable brand. And the last reason, frankly, is we will do it this way because it will save us money. And here's one study. I think you all know the global brand Deloitte. They looked at battery passports or product passports, textile, battery, every product. The difference between the worst case, where everybody does it on their own, and the coordinated case, 3 billion to 152 billion at a whole European ecosystem level. For everybody here that owns or runs a business, which option will you choose? It's not a hard choice. Will you choose the one that's shared? Or will you say, no, it's okay. We take the 60 times more expensive option. If you chose that normally in your businesses, you'd never sell another component. So the benefits of sharing and achieving better data, better traceability, better transparency in the supply chain, more information, probably we should do it anyway. Even if we weren't doing sustainability, we should do this to start to connect our industry in a different way. Now, I talked about that being an industrial revolution because we are not there, and I will not pretend that Europe has this resolved. What I would tell you is the work has started. Cycling Industries Europe, we have expert groups, we have groups of companies, world-leading brands that are beginning to set up the workshops, they're beginning to set up the studies. We are talking about how do we fund this, how do we raise the money, how do we fund the research. And what I've certainly said to colleagues here at Taipei Show, and this is a great opportunity to say it again, is we are the laboratory for the world bicycle industry. I'm sorry, but actually you can do all your Bicycle Alliance for Sustainability work in Taiwan. You can do all your cost savings in Taiwan. We actually need you to spend some time in Europe working with us so that it's one global system. And then it can go through all of us. And then we have the best chance of going back to the fact bike is best. And that every supplier in the chain should not fear sustainability. The Taiwanese industry should not fear sustainable change in Europe. It's not a threat to your business when you're producing the most sustainable vehicles on the planet. It is a threat if you're not in the team and you're doing your carbon declarations in a different way, you're doing your footprint, and you're not part of the digital revolution that will share all the data. But the opportunity is for all to be part of it, and that's what we as CIE are determined to provide. And we can provide also because trade associations, the good news is it's a compliant space where companies can talk within the frame of competition rules, but actually get stuff done. And I think what you've done here in the past with the A-Team and now with Bicycle Alliance Sustainability, you've actually taught us how to work together. And you have the CHC and those. We'd like to borrow some, please. We'd like to borrow some of your experience, but we really would like you to join us more in the European work to get this laboratory working for the whole industry. But if we do it, and what will happen if we do that? I like to use this, the iceberg. You only ever see the tip of the iceberg. So what people will see from the outside is an industry that proudly says, we are sustainable. We will push our carbon footprint down. Of course we're going to meet the regulations. Nobody's going to stand here and say we ignore the regulations. So that's what but for me, and for my cycling industry Europe colleagues, below the water is the Industrial Revolution. Changing the way this industry collaborates for efficiency, for consistency, for standardization, to make us all more competitive businesses in this kind of global space, to enable us to proudly defend the statement that not only is the bike the best mode of transport, but actually this is an industry that has matured and professionalized and is very, very proud of what it does. So I don't see sustainability as the great risk and challenge coming towards us. I see it as one of the great opportunities to do some of the many things we need to do in our structures. I'd only say, come and join the Industrial Revolution. Be part of it, because this is our shared opportunity to create a revolution through sustainability. Thank you very much for the invitation. Delighted